All right, so I was going to come down and do another video at the Chamber of Commerce about what happened yesterday to my amazing mother, and then thought that I would come here to the memorial just for a number of reasons. I just walked out, and Dave Holt literally walked right by me and just, I didn't say anything. I never do. I'm always respectful, especially in a place like this. Kind of unlike, not unlike, yes. Always good scatterbrain when I start. Kind of unlike how he spoke here a few months ago on the importance of engaging with others despite never engaging with a majority of those of us who fight, exploiting the suffering of the 168 and their families to try to punch another card on your exploit everything until collapse card is not very impressive to me. Okay, so I wanted to come here and talk about what happened yesterday. Primarily, yesterday was one of the most difficult days of my life. The most difficult would be April 19th, 1995. I worked at Abuelo's when that happened. The movie version of my life is like, that happens and I change into the person I am now, but it's been a gradual process. So, Fountains at Canterbury was the moment when I learned the question I had asked for so long, which was, we united together like nothing I have ever seen in my life. When the bombing happened, it was beautiful to see the people coming together, caring for each other, on and on. And always, as the soul is slowly eviscerated from our city through wandering capitals, exploitation, other things, I always wonder what would happen if something like that happened. And in my opinion, it did with Fountains at Canterbury, when all those folks were kicked out of their homes and really no one cared. It really hurt me to see what happened. I did a couple TV interviews about it. And I always wanted to really understand what happened to those folks, how they felt. Compassion is suffering with, not Snapchatting photos of yourself at parades. And after yesterday, it was horrible, it was awful, but it was meaningful. And I now really understand what those families went through. So what happened was, my mother was at St. Anne's. She'd been there for 3 weeks. The point of her being there was pretty much to buy time to find placement in a permanent facility. Finally found Timbers. She was going to move in last Wednesday. Last minute they had an issue, and moved it back to Friday. I thought that was great because it gives us extra time to get everything together. Well, Thursday came and I got a call at like 6 in the morning that my mom had become violent with a staff member, probably because the time she'd been there and just sensing the change coming. And so they said that they were going to ship her to St. Anthony's, psych eval, et cetera, et cetera. What they didn't tell me was, they released her. And what they didn't tell me as I was driving down to St. Anthony's was that Timber also canceled her bed and weren't going to allow her to stay there. So that's terrible, but it gets worse. When I get to St. Anthony, they tell me, you got to take your mother because we're not going to admit her, because if we take her and then her time's up, we have nowhere to release her to because she has no home. So I just went, and I hadn't really slept because, I was staying up late because I'm working a late shift. So I hadn't slept at all. Go down there, and I just I had never had a feeling of hopelessness like that before. But basically what happened is some folks came to our aid. There was a caseworker up there that really helped. Initially, I was told to find the caseworker, and they said, no, you can't find the caseworker because your mother's not admitted, so she's not accessible to you. Which is like, oh my God, everything was collapsing. And so after several hours, she didn't really help, but she did calm me down. Found one place my mother could go. It was in McAllister. It was a psych eval place, so they're going to put her in a van and drive her 2 hours, and we wouldn't be able to see her. So I made the decision that she should just go back to the home where I had taken her out of, basically with state intervention, because she wasn't getting the care she needed. There were bed bugs, on and on. But But it taking her back there for a couple weeks until we find permanent placement was the answer. She's back there now. After we were at St. Anthony's for about 9 hours, just sitting there waiting. But driving her home was pretty incredible. Going through Mesta Park, all those places, going through Paseo. She had a nice time. Her memory was triggered about a lot of things. So, and we went by St. Anne's to get her stuff and her meds. And by the time I got her home, I had a complete sense of peace that this happened, for two reasons. One, specifically, we can probably find a better deal for her than Timbers. That was kind of put on us by St. Anne's. St. Anne's is a good place. It's employee owned and all that. But I think we'll be able to find a better place for her. And secondly, the understanding and the meaningfulness of that day, and understanding what those Fountains at Canterbury folks went through. Just because Welltower Capital, a private equity firm that bought that property with the intent of bulldozing it and building a rental home neighborhood, is amazing to me. And just thinking of the folks that were kicked out that didn't really have the resources to move their parents somewhere else, and having to do on a daily basis for a length of time what I had to do yesterday. It's just incredible to think. And the righteous anger that was filled with when I did the video at the chamber the other day, it's multiplied now because what I have seen, and it's just like, to me, what happened here on April 19th, 1995, this economic terrorism is what these people are doing, and what caused my mother to be kicked out, because they have these strict rules as to who they can let in, who they can't. I said that St. Anne's is privately owned by people, so I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about St. Anthony's, who's now owned by a neo private equity firm. And I have never been more at peace with anything so quickly as what happened yesterday. This place, it took me forever to have any peace about it. It took me forever to come down here. And a lot of what I do is because of that day. And now what I do is because of that day and my mother. And her suffering and her martyrdom is not going to be for naught, because there's so many people that have it worse than she does.